Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the third of our Hangouts together. As ever, there's no real direction for tonight. These Hangouts, they can be used in so many ways. I remember that when I used to watch things like this myself, I used to love Hangouts. I mean, Eckhart Tolle and Adyashanti were the main people I used to watch. But then I'd use these Hangouts or their talks in so many different ways. Sometimes just background, I was tidying the kitchen or something. Sometimes I was kind of feeling a bit low or going through some hard times. I'd just kind of sit and listen. And then sometimes just for pleasure, had an hour or two free, so I'd kind of just click it on and watch. So as I say each week, the feed can take a little while to come through for people watching. So I like to start generally by just sitting for a while, just relaxing, just having some peaceful time really. And just to let you know as well, the Hangouts usually take place on a Tuesday night, but I've offered to run a meditation group in Liverpool for someone tomorrow night from about a month or two ago. So unfortunately, I'm not able to run the usual Tuesday night Hangout, which is why we're running tonight's or Tuesday nights tonight. Okay, to start with, as ever, we'll just do a little bit of meditation, which means really trying to disengage from the mind, trying to just step back from the thinking and all the feelings and all the craziness that we have inside of us that causes so much unnecessary suffering. So to begin with, let's just sit for a little while. Okay, so welcome if you're just joining us now. As we do each week, this is interactive. So if you're a member of the Heart Sangha on Facebook, which is the group that's affiliated with these Google Hangouts, please feel free. Send me any messages or posts, anything you want me to talk about. Also, any questions you have about the path, anything that's bothering you, anything you want clarity on. Even, things that you may have heard, posts you may have read that you kind of not want to get a clearer understanding of or deepen into, really. This path is quite strange in a way, in so much as I'm not saying this to ring my own bell, so to speak, but I've been on it for about 20 years, and I would call myself a fairly serious practitioner in so much as there's a strong desire, to really get this, to really get some clarity. You could call it the journey of enlightenment or surrender or awakening. But there's a very strong, or there has been a very strong desire, and it's taken me all over the world, studying in India for a while and doing a lot of Tai Chi, a lot of yoga, a lot of meditation, even spending a year off work just in silence, really. And what's very interesting is that I've had some quite beautiful insights and experiences along the way. Just nothing unusual, just like anyone has who dedicates themselves seriously to the path. But yeah, there's some days where I feel like I've got nowhere. Suddenly I've been peaceful for a long time. There's great wisdom, great insight. And suddenly the confusion reigns, disturbances in my body, in my mind, maybe even a sense of depression may come very rarely, but maybe time to time. And then I see the pattern of the problem arises where the mind starts to panic, So I think it does for everyone when we face major life events, when we feel we've lost something, we're going to lose something, but there's something to gain. It kind of rattles us up a bit. But what the path has taught me over time is that I'm not really meant to be getting anywhere. That the goal really, if we said there was a goal, is to know how to arrive, it seems to me, to arrive completely where we already are, but really completely, not kind of half here, half somewhere else. So over time, I think we learn those skills that are necessary to become still, to become present. And one of the skills is not to believe the mind so much. When the mind says, you're not good enough, you're unworthy, we can't get the hang of this. We're told about this word, unconditional love. And as humans, we can't really get our head around that. Because generally, there's not many people, if any, in the world that can demonstrate unconditional love, as much as, close as some might get. But then to see myself through the eyes of the Buddha nature, what we could call the soul, pure self, awareness, that's how that sees who I think I am. The personality self, that's how it sees me. And so to be in alignment with that bigger, grounder aspect that we all have within us is to have that unconditional love towards ourselves. It means complete acceptance. And the interesting thing about unconditional love, or we hear maybe on a workshop or in a book, that we need to learn to love ourselves. And that's, why not? Great. Yeah, I totally agree. It's a very useful foundation for what we could call the complete awakening. It's one of the pillars, if you like. Even in the Christian tradition, they say, I think Christ says the second commandment of the two important commandments. The second is love your neighbor as you love yourself. But then it's interesting because I don't believe a lot of us even know how to love ourselves. So what chance do we have of loving someone else completely if we haven't even figured that part out for ourselves? So that ability to love ourselves, as far as I can see, has, as all spiritual teachings do, has many, many dimensions to it. And one is the simple decision to see ourselves on good days and bad days of worthy of being loved, or worthy of compassion. And so that's certainly one level that works for me. When I'm having a bad day, when I feel disconnected, when I just feel out of sorts, what often brings me back is the simple choice to be okay with my lostness, with my confusion, with my inability even to live up to some kind of spiritual standard I have for myself. It's to kind of go easy on me. But then what I've also found, there's a flip side to that. That if I'm too easy on me, you know, sometimes I enter behavior patterns which lead to suffering, you know, eating too much of the wrong kind of food. You know, that could be one. We've all got those certain kind of vices or whatever. So it's really interesting. I heard it. I think I heard it described once in a training program I was doing, like a potter's wheel. In so much, it's that fine balance between enough self-discipline. You know, it's called the potter's wheel because it said the outside hand is like the level of discipline. It kind of holds everything together. But then if you only have the outer hand on the potter's wheel, you make a hard little ball. You know, it's not much use. And then the inner hand is called kind of love, self-acceptance. But then if, you know, the analogy I find is that if I only have pure love and self-acceptance and nothing else, that equally, it kind of, I think the potter's wheel analogy is that it just expands and expands and then flies everywhere. So it's said we need both. We need a level of self-discipline, which I think we generate over time as we find that if we behave, if we think, and if we kind of interact with ourselves in certain ways, initially it might lead to some kind of happiness, you know, short term. But then in the end, it tends to lead to suffering, you know, say eating a whole chocolate cake, you know, or something like that. It feels great at the time, but then we might feel lousy, like sugar come down, not liking it, you know, that our clothes don't fit anymore. So but also, you know, being overly strict and, you know, I'm never going to eat chocolate cake again, that can be equally as detrimental. We almost kind of suppress aspects of our personality which lead us again into that feeling of suffering. So my invitation to you as you listen to this really is just take some time to feel okay about yourself, no matter what, no matter how you feel, no matter what you did, no matter what you're worried about doing. Give yourself some permission just to like yourself, just as you are. This is kind of a really quick route to what I would call soul connection. Because if really you can come into those kind of alignments, complete self-acceptance, what we could call here-ness, being present. Appreciating a simple thing like a sunrise, or the wind blowing through the leaves. All those things seem to be beautiful gateways into the stillness, into that feeling of complete love. Okay, so as we do each week, we're going to maybe sit for 5 minutes or so. I like to do a bit of an introductory kind of talk, and then we sit for a while and do some guided meditation. But as I say each week, meditation is your natural beingness. If you could say that your soulfulness, your soul, your awareness, it's already in that state of meditation. The soul, in a way, doesn't need to meditate because it is in that place of being. And of course, if you follow a non-dualist path, or even types of Buddhism, you think, oh, well, what soul? So what? Don't understand. There is no soul. Buddha said there was no self. So you can use the word awareness, or consciousness, pure consciousness, that which is. Whatever of those labels work for you is absolutely fine. So in a way, meditation practice is an attempt to get in contact with that aspect of our being which is already meditating or in that state, that pure awareness, the natural state. One of the simplest methods for that is just to sit in silence, in calmness. And almost allow that natural sense of peace to arise by itself, in its own way, in its own time. Just allow it to emerge. So just sitting, simply sitting for a while, allowing your mind to either become quieter, more peaceful, or allowing your thoughts to come and go. If you can't achieve either of those things, if just incredible busyness is there, you can use a single pointed awareness to give the mind something to do. So for that, you can use the breath, you can use a mantra, or you can choose to be present to something. Internal silence, something that you're aware of, maybe outside the window or in the room. Try not to hold on to anything. Let everything come and go. Try and see the impermanence of everything that's phenomena, the phenomenal level. Try and see the impermanence of those things. Whether that's opinions or thoughts, feelings, emotions. Notice it all comes, it all goes. And if you can start to see that, observe it. If you notice that there's all this impermanence coming and going, seasons, the body, you may notice that the acceptance of change that almost you could say within that somehow, with the understanding of the impermanence, seeing it for what it is, there's this permanence. It's not a thing. It's nothing you can grasp. There's almost this steadiness that isn't coming and going. And the paradox is you get clearer about that by noticing the coming and the going, really with awareness, with clarity. The meditation training as a practice, or most of the yoga techniques as I can understand them, they strengthen, just like we strengthen the body. Being photobombed by a cat again. God. The technique of yoga meditation really is that, as I said, each week really the single pointed mind. So it's in a way it's training the awareness to be here, or that you could call it the mind. So when we repeat a mantra, for example, or when we're now present, observing, it creates that kind of nowness, that steadiness. And then in the background, we might start to notice, as we're now present to a mantra perhaps, in the background, thoughts may not stop, but they come and they go. They're impermanent. And it's almost that when we stop feeding them, they tend to become quieter, almost in the background. And then what we could call the natural state, soul awareness, Buddha nature, it simply becomes more apparent. It becomes more apparent. It's not a thing. It's not something I believe you can label or grasp. But here it is. Things come, things go. But the awareness remains. And so for me, this is meditation, the state of meditation. Calm mind, a sense of inner ease, sense of natural surrender. And from that place, for me personally, the activation of compassion, of love, a love that doesn't seem to be capable without the stillness. It's almost like we need that calmness to really enter the heart, the real sense of true compassion. Okay, so we go on to our aspect of this, which is more interactive now. So please do Facebook me any questions you may have. Also, again, I think there's a chat message link over to the side of the screen. So if you want to type anything into that, if that works, feel free. Okay, so the first question for tonight. The question and statement is, I've been attempting meditation. I've been using Zen teachings, they're very good, as a reference, but every time I reach the point where my mind is becoming still, I jolt upright as I realize I've fallen asleep. Haha. Okay, so let's address that part of it firstly, okay? So I used to get that all the time. It's a very common thing. We don't have maybe the internal energy. We don't have a sharp enough consciousness to be held in place. That takes a little while to develop, the capacity of consciousness. And there's ever many, many levels to this. There's so many levels to it. One of those levels is that sometimes sleepiness is natural, you know, a lot of things going on, you know, we maybe have a child, you know, that we're not sleeping, we may work long hours, and it could simply be the body needs to rest, and that's, you know, listen to that. So the first level of the kind of question and answer to that is, if you're feeling tired and you have the luxury of time, my advice would be sleep. What I used to do was put I'd sit on my yoga mat and meditate, and sometimes, you know, the tiredness would come. So I'd roll out my mat, lie back, sleep, and I might sleep for 15 or 20 minutes. And then I'd sit up again, just carry on meditating. And then I'd be a bit fresher, a bit more alive, a bit more awake. So I'd be very kind with myself, not too harsh, really. So that's the first level. If sleepiness comes and it just won't shift, maybe just honor that. Have a nap, have a sleep. You know, that can lower the resistance and the pain within us. We feel okay again. So second aspect to this question is development. How do you start to meet tiredness? So sometimes if I'm teaching and a tiredness is there for some reason, I don't necessarily have the luxury of lying back and falling asleep. So what I'll actually do is I'll notice the tiredness in my body as a sensation. Usually kind of around here maybe, or in the shoulders and the neck, you know, somewhere around here. And that will become my meditation. What I mean is I'll become deeply aware of the sensation of tiredness in my body. I'll feel where it is, how it feels. And sometimes that deep awareness of the sensation of tiredness in my body, the acceptance of it, complete acceptance of it, the allowing of it to be there. Sometimes, I feel energy start to release within my body. It's almost like a weight's being taken off, like some kind of energetic movement or shift. So the two options, as I've described, first, if you need to sleep, no problem. Be kind and loving to yourself. No problem with that. Second option, straighten the spine. Feel the tiredness, or instead of straightening spine, which would be the Zen technique, which is what you're talking about, if you were doing mantra meditation and tiredness was there, I'd intensify the mantra within myself, really focus on the mantra. And that sometimes creates that still point in which the tiredness isn't the main attraction. And sometimes with that sharpness of awareness and mind, the tiredness will kind of usually judders and then goes, and then some wakefulness is left. So those are on the subject of the tiredness, that's my two recommendations. So, is there a method or technique I can use to stop this? Yeah, just as I've described, really. So I like the empty mind approach, as I feel a lot better in myself after just attempting to obtain this state. Also, the other thing is, it's an ongoing experiment with yourself to find what works for you. But sometimes it can be quite draining, to sit upright or do a very strong Zen meditation. Sometimes, if you can do yoga nidra, lie in bed. Lie back, breathe, let thoughts come and go. Do lying down meditation and you may fall asleep, or get yourself snuggled up in a blanket and just, stare at a wall, stare out the window, and just be with yourself, be with yourself. So another option is then, as we're discussing it, is that tiredness might come from trying too hard, or it might come from trying too little. Almost too much grasping, or not enough. Yeah, so I guess that's what I have to say on that. So maybe stop for a moment and examine your moment. How is this moment for you? Are you trying to grasp something? Are you thinking, I really need to learn something from listening to this? When I hear those words or that sentence, then I'm sure everything will suddenly make sense. Sometimes, though, the invitation is to step into the unknowing, the letting go of knowledge, to become as a child with a beginner's mind, and just savor the moment without telling the moment what it is or what it should be. Experiencing the presentation, the arrival of life as it is in this moment, in this now. That can be so easy, so beautiful. is such a beautiful form of self-love and self-care. Just to sit quietly. Because in that, you're not being harsh on yourself. And in that, you're reaching that place of unconditional love, which means however I am in this moment is completely acceptable to me. Whether I'm cranky, whether I feel like a failure, whether I don't have any clarity, it's all acceptable. That's true unconditional love, where we extend 100% acceptance to who we are in this moment. And there's techniques you can do, for experiencing that. You can simply be present. Or on the deepest level, you can connect with that part of you, which is kind of effortless, aware. Already is. And that place has the gentleness, which allows the personality to feel that acceptance, that compassion, that kind of okayness. I call it okayness. So simply be the space in which all of life can exist as you, as the stars, as all beings. This is an incredible compassion. So we have another question. Lovely. So I have had a few weeks of reclining in a bouncy armchair, which has been enormously beneficial. Great. The interesting thing was how I at first was constantly looking for something to do. Read, surf the web, do a puzzle. But ultimately, just being still, relaxing, and doing nothing was healing me. Exactly. Now I have increasing energy and drive. It allowed me to really listen to myself, to be kind. Absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. It took me so long to get that. So long. And I was just back from Thailand, a retreat in Thailand. And I was meditating, tai chiing, forcing and fighting my way into some kind of place I knew I wanted to get to. And I saw a pamphlet from a local Zen center, and it had a picture of their Zen master, and he was just sat in the Zen posture. And so something just called to me to do that. So I just sat in front of the radiator, and I just sat. And it was the first time I'd not tried to meditate, not force something to happen, not kind of driven myself hard. And poof, I cried for about 20 minutes with relief. And it was the first sampling of this great peace. It seems to be becoming more stable now over the years, without needing a technique as such, just kind of more there, just here. But yeah, it comes when we start to realize how easy this is meant to be, and how we don't need to bring our neurosis to our yoga practice. or our meditation or our Tai Chi, trying to be the best, trying to force something to happen. Perhaps there's a time for that we all go through. You know, maybe if there's a storm, you do need to hold on tight to something. But then there just seems to be this time where it all gets so natural, so easy, so effortless, this state of being. Yeah, lovely. And quite often, as I was saying last week, in the stillness, there's a wisdom there that we miss in all the thinking, all the mental agitation, activity of trying to get somewhere and trying to find something. We miss it. And most often when I turn to the silence and say, I need to do something about this, what do I need to do? Most of the time, it says nothing. Breathe, relax. Let life take care of you. Let life take care of itself. You don't have to force the summer to come, the flower to open. Almost that forcing these things to happen, as Lao Tzu says in the Tao Te Ching, you trying to force a project to completion, you ruin what was almost ripe. So that stillness allows us that clarity and ease to see how things just flow by themselves, and that we tend to get in the way with our to-do lists and our plans and our desiring and our pushing. It's all meant to be, I think, very, very natural. Okay, just double check. So I suppose that starts to neatly bring us to the end of our session tonight. They seem to go very quiet, very quickly at this end. So the invitation as we come to the end is to kind of just be here. Just be that space in which the love and the compassion can have a chance of growing and blossoming. Okay, so what do you think? Any good? So until next week, have a beautiful week. Goodbye.